Hello brothers, and welcome to Sigma Old Man channel. The rarest form of strength isn't physical, it's the mind that can stay silent in a world screaming for attention. The Sigma male doesn't roar, he observes. While the world is obsessed with looking intelligent, he's busy being intelligent, quietly dismantling illusions one thought at a time. In fact, psychologists say that solitude enhances cognitive clarity by up to 60%, but most people can't handle 5 minutes of their own silence without reaching for a screen. That's where the Sigma's mental fortress begins, in the very space everyone else runs from. He's not the loud genius scribbling formulas on a board. He's the one watching patterns collapse in real time, smiling because he predicted it hours ago. The Sigma's brain operates like a shadow operating system, unseen, misunderstood, but terrifyingly efficient. And the funniest part, society still calls him antisocial for refusing to waste energy pretending to fit in. This isn't about introversion or rebellion. It's about a rare kind of mental architecture, built from solitude, discipline, and brutal self-honesty. These are the mental titans walking among us. Silent, strategic, and 3 moves ahead, while everyone else is still updating their emotional software. Welcome to 12 reasons why Sigma males are the mental titans amongst us. Let's dive into the mind that doesn't just think differently, it evolves differently. Number 1, they have a predator's sense for psychological weakness. They have a predator's sense for psychological weakness, not because they want to exploit people, but because they can't help but see what others try to hide. A Sigma male walks through life reading human behavior like code. Every micro-expression, tone shift, and hesitation tells him something. It's not some mystical gift. It's the product of years spent observing rather than performing. While most people are busy trying to be understood, he's decoding why they need to be understood in the first place. The Sigma mind doesn't just notice weakness, it maps it. He can tell when confidence is borrowed, when kindness hides guilt, and when arrogance is just the echo of insecurity. What others call intuition is really his trained perception at work. He studies patterns in people's behavior until they reveal the emotional software running underneath. To him, every human interaction is a small window into the hidden mechanics of someone's psyche. He doesn't use this awareness to dominate or manipulate. That would be beneath him. What he seeks is clarity. Knowing what drives people protects him from their illusions and from being emotionally ambushed. He's not paranoid. He's prepared. He can sense when someone's intentions aren't clean, when their smiles come with conditions, or when a conversation carries silent traps. That's why people often find him hard to deceive. His calmness unnerves manipulators because they can feel he already knows their playbook. This awareness gives him a quiet edge in every environment. He rarely reacts because he's already processed what others are still trying to understand. It's why he never needs to shout to be heard. His mere composure exposes others' insecurity. There's something unsettling about someone who can see through your defenses without effort. And that's exactly what makes the Sigma male's mind both fascinating and feared. He's not out to win psychological battles. He avoids them entirely by recognizing them before they even begin. That's what makes him a mental titan. He understands that true power isn't in controlling others, but in never being controlled. His mind doesn't just analyze people, it quietly disarms them, one unspoken truth at a time. Number 2, they understand that true intelligence is quiet. True intelligence doesn't announce itself, it simply exists, calm and unbothered. The Sigma male understands this instinctively. He doesn't need to prove he's smart because he knows that real intellect doesn't compete for attention. It controls outcomes silently. While others rush to showcase their knowledge, dropping facts like confetti, the Sigma observes, listens, and waits. He knows that words spoken too quickly often reveal ignorance faster than silence ever could. His restraint isn't shyness, it's strategy. There's a quiet authority that follows a Sigma male. He doesn't argue to win, he speaks to clarify. And when he does speak, every word carries weight because it's been filtered through thought, not ego. He doesn't need to dominate conversations. He lets people expose themselves through theirs. What makes him different is that his intelligence doesn't crave validation. He has no hunger to be seen as the smartest person in the room. Instead, he's content being the one who understands the most. The Sigma male's intelligence is self-regulating. He doesn't just know things, he understands why he knows them. He's brutally honest with his own logic, constantly testing it against reality rather than emotion. This makes his mind incredibly stable in a world full of reactive thinkers. He doesn't get dragged into chaos because he processes before responding. To many, his calmness looks like detachment, but it's actually deep mental discipline. What most people call humility in him is really quiet power. He doesn't downplay his intellect, he just doesn't need to parade it. He knows that a loud genius is often covering a silent insecurity. The Sigma doesn't chase admiration. He lets accuracy speak for him. People eventually realize that he was right all along, not because he said so, but because reality confirmed it. That's what makes him a true mental titan. His intelligence isn't designed for applause. It's designed for efficiency. It moves quietly, without friction, without the need for spectacle. The Sigma male understands the paradox of wisdom. The smarter you become, the less you need to prove it. And that silent confidence is what makes his mind one of the most dangerous forces in any room. Not loud, not showy, but undeniably in control. Number 3, they read environments like data fields. When a Sigma male walks into any environment, his mind starts working like a scanner, quietly collecting, analyzing, and decoding everything without needing to say a word. He notices what others overlook, who avoids whose gaze, whose laughter sounds forced, who's posturing for approval, and who's quietly uncomfortable. To most people, these moments are invisible. To him, they're signals, patterns waiting to be interpreted. He doesn't see faces, he sees behaviors, syncing, clashing, or pretending to align. This isn't guesswork or mystical intuition. It's neurological precision, built from years of observation. The Sigma male's brain is constantly processing micro details, tone changes, posture shifts, micro expressions, pacing of speech, and translating them into meaning. While others focus on what's being said, he studies how it's being said and why. Every environment becomes a data field of social codes, and he deciphers them almost effortlessly. That's why he often seems quiet in social settings, not because he's shy, but because he's busy mapping the hierarchy of the room. Within minutes, he knows who's pretending to lead, who's secretly pulling strings, and who's just there for validation. It's not arrogance, it's pattern literacy. His brain naturally picks up on contradictions between words and energy, and that's where truth hides. This awareness makes the Sigma male nearly impossible to manipulate. You can't trick someone who's reading 10 layers deeper than the conversation. He spots hidden motives, emotional bait, and false confidence the way a mathematician spots errors in a formula. He doesn't react to surface drama because he's already processed the underlying algorithm driving it. That's also why his presence can feel unsettling. People sense he's seeing through them, not just looking at them. They can feel his attention dissecting the space, calm, calculating, and utterly detached from the noise. He doesn't need to dominate the room. He already understands how it operates. For the Sigma male, awareness is armor. His perception gives him control without confrontation. By the time others figure out what's really happening, he's already positioned himself perfectly, mentally, emotionally, and strategically. That's the power of a mind that reads the world not as chaos, but as a living code waiting to be mastered. Number 4, they're addicted to cognitive tension. Sigma males are wired to think where most people get uncomfortable. They're drawn to mental friction, that uneasy space between two conflicting ideas that most minds rush to escape. While others crave certainty, the Sigma thrives in confusion. To him, contradiction isn't chaos, it's the birthplace of real understanding. He knows that truth isn't found in comfort, it's found in the pressure that forces your mind to question what it believes. Cognitive tension is like mental weightlifting for a Sigma male. The harder the paradox, the more he grows. He doesn't shy away from ideas that clash with his own. He studies them, dismantles them, and reconstructs them until they make sense on his terms. Where the average person wants a quick conclusion, he wants depth. He stays in that mental storm until the clouds clear. And what's left is clarity most people never reach because they quit thinking too soon. This addiction to tension makes him both frustrating and fascinating to others. He can hold two opposing beliefs in his mind without breaking a sweat, not because he's indecisive, but because he understands that most truths exist in layers. He doesn't see the world in black and white. He sees the entire grayscale between them. That's why conversations with him can feel both enlightening and unsettling. He'll question everything, not to win, but to reach a version of truth that isn't corrupted by bias or ego. The Sigma male's mind doesn't chase easy answers. It feeds on complexity, contradiction, and uncertainty, the very things that make others anxious. This mental resilience gives him an incredible advantage. He can adapt, rethink, and evolve faster than those who cling to fixed beliefs. Every paradox he wrestles with sharpens his thinking, toughens his logic, and humbles his ego. That's what makes him a mental titan. His brain doesn't freeze under pressure, it thrives in it. The Sigma male understands that the mind only expands when it's challenged, and comfort is the enemy of evolution. So while the world seeks simplicity, he walks willingly into the storm of complexity, because that's where real intelligence is forged. Number 5, they don't chase knowledge, they hunt understanding. Sigma males don't collect knowledge to look smart. They study to understand. In a world obsessed with memorizing facts, they're more interested in mastering meaning. To them, information is everywhere, but understanding is rare. Anyone can repeat what they've read, but few can connect it to real life in a way that changes how they think, act, or see the world. The Sigma mind filters knowledge like gold through fire, burning away the shallow noise until only truth remains. They're not impressed by people who quote books or drop intellectual jargon in conversation. To a Sigma, that's mental cosplay, dressing up ignorance as intelligence. He'd rather spend hours breaking down a single concept until he can feel its logic in his bones than skim 1,000 ideas just to sound informed. He hunts for principles, not headlines, insight, not applause. Knowledge that doesn't evolve him is useless. What makes his learning style powerful is how practical it is. He doesn't chase random facts for the thrill of knowing. He seeks patterns, systems, and connections that make life sharper. When he learns something new, he tests it, challenges it, and adapts it until it becomes part of his inner framework. Every lesson becomes a tool, and every mistake becomes data. That's why his wisdom feels lived, not borrowed. While others hoard information to look superior, the Sigma refines it to become superior, internally, quietly, without a show. He knows most people learn to impress, not to transform. That's why their intelligence collapses the moment they can't Google the answer. The sigma, on the other hand, builds a mental architecture so strong that it functions independently of trends, opinions, or approval. He's a craftsman of thought, not a collector of trivia. To him, real knowledge isn't about remembering, it's about integrating. It's about taking raw information and turning it into personal wisdom that actually works in the chaos of reality. That's why Sigma males often appear years ahead of their time. While everyone else is busy quoting information, he's already become the understanding they're trying to find. Number 6, they respect complexity but worship simplicity. Sigma males have an unusual relationship with complexity. They're not intimidated by it. They dissect it. Their minds are built to handle layered problems, conflicting details, and abstract systems without getting lost. But what separates them from ordinary thinkers is that they don't stay in complexity. They walk through it to reach simplicity. To them, complexity is just the jungle that must be navigated before clarity can be found. That's why their solutions often seem effortless. Because by the time you see the result, they've already survived the mental battlefield that produced it. They understand that true intelligence isn't about making things complicated. It's about making the complicated clear. Anyone can overthink a problem, but very few can translate it into something clean and practical. That's the Sigma's gift. He simplifies without dumbing down. He sees what others can't because he strips away what doesn't matter. To him, simplicity isn't laziness, it's mastery. It's the art of removing confusion until only the essential truth remains. Most people equate complexity with depth, but the Sigma knows that complexity often hides ignorance. He sees through intellectual posturing, people who use big words to disguise small thinking. He doesn't need to sound smart. He needs to be effective. That's why his advice, when he gives it, sounds disarmingly simple, but it works. He's already done the heavy mental lifting in silence, breaking chaos down until it obeys logic. This mindset makes the Sigma male a master problem solver. He approaches challenges like puzzles that already have answers, just buried under unnecessary noise. He removes the excess, connects the patterns, and arrives at conclusions that feel obvious only after he's revealed them. People often mistake his calm confidence for luck or intuition, not realizing that it's the result of a mind trained to turn disorder into order without spectacle. His power lies not in knowing more, but in needing less to understand deeply. He respects the beauty of complexity, but bows to the supremacy of simplicity, because he knows that the highest form of intelligence isn't in saying much, but in saying what truly matters. Number 7, they see society as a psychological experiment gone wrong. To the Sigma male, society doesn't feel like a community. It feels like a massive psychological experiment where almost everyone has unconsciously agreed to follow invisible scripts. People talk about freedom, but he sees them trapped in social conditioning, chasing approval like lab rats pressing a button for validation. From the Sigma's point of view, most human behavior isn't driven by individuality, but by imitation. Everyone claims to think for themselves, yet somehow they all end up dressing the same, speaking the same, and fearing the same things. He watches this unfold with a mix of fascination and quiet disbelief. To him, the world looks like a live demonstration of how easily humans can be programmed. Trends become belief systems, and opinions are downloaded instead of developed. People change their values to fit in, not realizing they've become walking social experiments, constantly reacting to each other's behaviors. It's not that the Sigma feels superior. He just refuses to surrender his mind to the crowd's hypnosis. That's why he deliberately stands apart, not to rebel, but to observe. He becomes the control variable, the one person who refuses to react like everyone else. While others are swept away by emotional contagion, he studies the current. When everyone panics, he stays still. When the world praises something blindly, he asks, who benefits? That detachment gives him psychological freedom in a world built on emotional manipulation. His skepticism isn't negativity, it's clarity. The Sigma male sees how society subtly rewards compliance and punishes independent thought. He understands that approval has become the new form of control. People trade authenticity for acceptance without even realizing it. So he opts out of the experiment. He stops playing the game, and that's what makes him unpredictable and dangerous to systems that rely on predictability. The Sigma male's greatest rebellion is his refusal to participate blindly. While others live as test subjects of culture, he lives as its quiet analyst. His mind isn't shaped by trends, ideology, or herd logic. He watches, learns, and then writes his own code. That's what makes him the control variable, the rare constant in a world addicted to following the crowd. Number 8. They're ruthless about cognitive hygiene. Sigma males treat their minds the way a warrior treats his weapon, with absolute care and precision. They understand that a powerful mind can be dulled by noise, and in today's world, noise is everywhere. Every scroll, every opinion, every pointless argument is designed to clutter your thinking and weaken your focus. But a Sigma doesn't allow that kind of chaos to enter his mental space. He's ruthless about what he lets in, not because he's arrogant, but because he values clarity more than comfort. He knows that every piece of information has weight. Let too much of the wrong kind in, and it starts to slow you down. That's why he doesn't consume random content or engage in meaningless conversations. If it doesn't sharpen his awareness, challenge his mind, or feed his curiosity, it gets cut off immediately. To outsiders, this looks cold or detached. In reality, it's discipline. He refuses to let his thoughts become a dumping ground for the world's nonsense. The Sigma male doesn't just protect his time, he protects his mental ecosystem. He filters what he reads, watches, and even who he spends time with, because he knows that every interaction either adds clarity or creates confusion. He's not antisocial, he's anti-distraction. He understands that mental clutter is the silent killer of intelligence. It makes people reactive, scattered, and dependent on stimulation instead of strategy. Where most people drown in opinions, the Sigma studies perspectives. Where others binge content for entertainment, he consumes knowledge for evolution. He takes breaks from digital noise, spends time in silence, and regularly resets his focus like a system purge. This isn't about being perfect, it's about being intentional. That's what makes his mind so sharp. It's clean. While others are overwhelmed by information overload, he's operating with crystal clear logic. His thoughts are aligned, his emotions balanced, and his perception razor-edged. The Sigma male understands something most people ignore. Your mind becomes what you feed it. So he feeds his with purpose, precision, and peace. Because in a chaotic world, mental hygiene isn't optional, it's survival. Number 9, they understand that emotional intelligence without boundaries is self-destruction. Sigma males understand emotions with surgical precision. They can read a person's tone, facial micro-expressions, and subtle shifts in energy almost instantly. But unlike most people who drown in what they feel, Sigmas maintain control. They know that emotional intelligence isn't about absorbing everyone's emotions. It's about interpreting them without losing your center. To them, empathy without boundaries isn't kindness, it's self-sabotage. They've learned that feeling too deeply without filters is a liability in a manipulative world. People who can't manage their empathy often become emotional sponges, soaking up everyone else's pain, guilt, and drama until they forget who they are. The Sigma refuses to live like that. He feels, but selectively. He understands your emotions, but he doesn't carry them. His empathy is like a precision tool. He uses it to connect, diagnose, or influence when necessary, but then he puts it back in its case. This emotional control doesn't make him cold. It makes him functional. He knows that being overly empathetic can be just as dangerous as being emotionless. It opens the door for manipulation, guilt traps, and emotional blackmail. That's why Sigmas don't get easily guilted into things. They see through emotional pressure tactics instantly because they've trained themselves to separate compassion from compliance. Their detachment confuses people who are used to emotional chaos. When someone tries to provoke or guilt them, the Sigma stays calm, not out of indifference, but because he's already processed what's happening. He sees the emotional game for what it is. He knows who's expressing genuine pain and who's performing for attention. His empathy works with logic, not against it. This balance gives him an emotional edge most people lack. He can navigate tense situations without losing control, mediate conflicts without absorbing them, and support others without draining himself. That's why people often find comfort in his presence. His emotions are steady, not contagious. The Sigma male's emotional intelligence is disciplined, measured, and powerful. He knows that emotions are tools for understanding the world, not chains that bind you to it. That's what makes his emotional strength so rare. It's not loud, but it's unbreakable. Number 10, they don't argue, they deconstruct. Sigma males don't waste energy arguing, they dismantle. When someone challenges them, they don't rise to the noise or get pulled into emotional tug-of-war. Instead, they start quietly taking the argument apart piece by piece, like an engineer examining a broken circuit. Their calmness isn't passivity, it's precision. While the other person is busy defending their pride, the Sigma is analyzing their logic, locating the cracks, and preparing to drop the one statement that ends the entire debate without breaking a sweat. What makes this unsettling is how effortlessly they do it. They don't shout, they don't posture. They simply expose the weakness in your reasoning and let silence do the rest. It's not about being right for them, it's about clarity. They're allergic to sloppy thinking. If your argument doesn't hold up to scrutiny, they'll strip it down until it collapses under its own weight. The way they challenge ideas is surgical. No theatrics, no insults, just precision dismantling. Their calmness during conflict drives people crazy. Most expect emotional resistance, not quiet analysis. The Sigma's lack of reaction disarms the opponent because it removes the fuel of ego. You can't win a shouting match with someone who refuses to raise their voice. He simply listens, processes, and delivers a response so logically airtight that continuing the argument feels pointless. That's not arrogance, it's control. He values mental efficiency, not drama. Sigmas also understand that arguments are rarely about truth. They're about ego survival. And since he has nothing to prove, he doesn't get emotionally entangled. He lets people talk themselves into exposure, then calmly points out the flaw they didn't see. By the time they realize what happened, he's already moved on, leaving them arguing with their own confusion. This ability to deconstruct instead of debate makes him intimidating in intellectual settings. He doesn't overpower with emotion. He wins with structure. His logic is quiet but lethal, the kind that cuts through arrogance without ever breaking composure. That's why when a Sigma speaks, people listen, not because he's loud, but because every word lands like a blade. Number 11, they're fluent in the language of human contradiction. Sigma males are fluent in the unspoken. They don't just hear what people say, they decode what they really mean beneath the words. Their minds are tuned to pick up the tension between speech and truth, between what's said and what's silently avoided. They understand that humans are walking contradictions, driven by fear, ego, and hidden motives. So they listen less to the language itself and more to the subtle dissonance behind it. A pause too long, a smile too tight, a shift in tone. These are the signals that reveal what words are designed to hide. To most people, communication is about listening. To a Sigma, it's about decoding. He doesn't take things at face value because he knows words are often social camouflage. People lie without realizing it, not always out of malice, but because truth is uncomfortable. The Sigma's mind naturally filters through those inconsistencies, separating genuine emotion from performance. That's why he's rarely surprised by betrayal or disappointment. He saw it coming in the body language, long before it arrived in words. His understanding of human contradiction makes him exceptionally hard to fool. He sees when someone's confidence is forced, when kindness has an agenda, and when agreement hides resentment. To him, hypocrisy isn't shocking, it's predictable. He accepts it as part of human nature but refuses to participate in it. This emotional X-ray vision allows him to move through life strategically, connecting deeply with the genuine and avoiding the chaotic. What's fascinating is that he doesn't use this ability to judge, he uses it to understand. He knows that most contradictions come from insecurity or fear, not evil intent. So instead of condemning people, he studies them. He learns their patterns, their triggers, their defenses. And because of that, he can navigate relationships with precision, saying just enough, never too much, always staying one layer deeper than the rest. That's the quiet brilliance of the Sigma male. He doesn't need to expose your contradictions. He simply understands them better than you do. While most people drown in mixed signals, he reads them like sheet music, every pause, every inconsistency, every unspoken truth forming a melody only his mind can interpret. Number 12. They're immune to the psychological inflation of ego. Sigma males operate on a different frequency when it comes to self-worth. Their sense of identity isn't tied to applause or approval. It's anchored in accuracy, not ego. While most people chase validation like oxygen, a Sigma is content breathing in his own self-awareness. He doesn't need to feel superior to anyone because he's not competing on that level. His satisfaction comes from being right within himself, from knowing his thoughts, choices, and actions align with reality, not reputation. Ego-driven people crave recognition because their confidence depends on others feeding it. The Sigma sees this for what it is, psychological inflation. Praise gives them a temporary high, but it also makes them dependent on it. To him, that's weakness disguised as pride. He'd rather build quiet confidence through competence, through knowing that what he does is grounded in truth, not hype. His ego isn't inflated, it's calibrated. Every bit of self-belief he has is earned, tested, and verified. Criticism doesn't shake him either. He listens, filters, and keeps what's useful. The rest rolls off because his worth isn't up for public vote. He doesn't rise when praised or crumble when mocked. He stays centered. This neutrality confuses people who live off emotional reactions. When they try to provoke him, he responds with the same calm precision he brings to everything else. It's not arrogance, it's self-regulation. He knows that once your emotions become public property, so does your power. The Sigma's detachment from ego is what gives him real authority. You can't manipulate someone who doesn't need your validation. You can't insult someone who isn't defined by approval. He doesn't measure himself by comparisons, only by his own evolving standards. That's why his confidence feels different, quieter but stronger. It's not a performance, it's structure. He lives by an internal audit system, constantly refining himself, not to impress, but to improve. His mind doesn't chase the illusion of being the best. It seeks the truth of being authentic. That's why Sigma males rarely brag or boast. They don't need to. The quiet certainty of knowing who they are is worth more than any crowd's applause. The Sigma male's mind isn't loud, but it's legendary. It moves through the world with a kind of silent dominance, not built on arrogance but on precision. While others chase recognition, he chases truth. While society drowns in noise, he thrives in silence. His thoughts are deliberate, his emotions disciplined, and his instincts frighteningly accurate. He's not interested in being admired. He's interested in understanding. And that's what makes him a mental titan. Not the knowledge he holds, but the clarity he wields. Everything about the Sigma's intelligence operates beneath the surface. His calm isn't emptiness, it's calculation. His detachment isn't indifference, it's strategy. He knows that the real battlefield isn't physical, it's psychological. The world tries to condition minds to obey, to react, to depend. The Sigma's rebellion is simple. He refuses to be conditioned. He filters everything: emotions, people, information, even himself. What's left is a purified consciousness, focused, grounded, and untouchable. His mind is his empire. He rules it without noise, without ego, without the need for validation. And that's what truly separates him from the rest. The power to think independently in a world addicted to approval. He's not chasing success. He's mastering perception. He's not trying to outshine others. He's mastering his own shadow. The Sigma male's brilliance doesn't explode outward. It radiates inward, shaping how he sees, how he moves, and how he conquers life on his own terms. If you've made it this far, you already understand. The Sigma male isn't here to fit into the world's system. He's here to study it, outthink it, and quietly redesign it from the shadows. His mind is his greatest weapon, and his silence is his strategy. If this breakdown gave you something to think about, if it challenged your perspective, sharpened your insight, or simply reminded you that quiet strength is still the most powerful kind, then don't just scroll away. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Share it with someone who needs to understand what true mental dominance looks like. Because in a world full of noise, it's time more people learned the art of thinking like a Sigma.